Hey there, cats and kitties. I am the Blues Man, Johnny Blues, coming at you live to talk about the Disney Pixar fully animated feature film Coco, which I love and adore. Finally caught up with this piece in the week of waiting for the winter season of anime to start coming in and picking and choosing what I'm going to be watching and potentially covering in reviews. Wanted to catch up on a few movies that I haven't seen, documentaries and things of that sort. And this was definitely top of the list. A movie I desperately wanted to see since the very first preview for it, and it delivered on all counts. It got me misty eyed several times, and I just found it to be a beautiful, beautiful, meticulously crafted piece that is almost utmost perfect. I mean, and this is something. I'm a Disney fan. I'm a longtime Disney fan. I'm a fan of a handful of Pixar's works, The Incredibles being my favorite. This comes a close second, I can say without a doubt, all revolving around this family wherein music is forbidden for many generations. We're following mainly, the main focused character is this little boy Miguel, who is so utmost passionate about music. He loves it, but it is forbidden within his family, going back several generations to his great great grandmother, whose, fiance husband and the father of her daughter was a musician who went out traveling to perform and never returned home. The family is largely absent minded as far as the details beyond that, with the exception of the fact that the great great grandmother, had forbidden music from ever being a thing, allowable within the family. Out of sort of the vengeance and the rage and the frustration and the hate she felt for this musician having never returned home. She felt that he left and abandoned them, and little did she know, as we would come to find, he had actually died, and that's why he never returned home. But this is such a beautifully woven tale, very much, surrounding the Mexican Day of the Dead festival, and this boy Miguel, in seeking out an opportunity to hopefully play, music and prove himself, prove that he has the talent, he's naturally gifted. He comes to the conclusion that this very popular all-time Mexican singer, whose name is Senor de la Cruz. I think it's Ernesto de la Cruz. This guy is world renowned, world famous, and it turned out that during a live performance, he was actually killed by, of all things, a giant bell dropping on his head. And this coinciding with the fact that, Miguel had found an old picture with the head ripped off of whom was supposed to be his great great grandfather, holding the guitar that this Ernesto de la Cruz, this world renowned singer, was known to wield himself, was the very guitar he used. He makes the conclusion that, okay, that must be, this De La Cruz guy must be my grandfather. So when his family finds out he's been keeping and hiding his passion for music, he has his entire attic decked out with, all this memorabilia to do with De La Cruz and everything, because he's just a fanboy of him, without even thinking they're related. But it leads one thing to another for him to be suddenly, feeling this emotional groundswell of pride and excitement, thinking, "Oh my God, I'm this guy's lineage." But when the family subsequently finds out about this holy grail of memorabilia and everything of his, that he's been hiding this passion for music, even though it is something that is so forbidden in the family, they smashed the guitar he managed to get his hands on. So he ends up going to the mausoleum where the body of De La Cruz is, because it's been many years since he passed away. And, he is somebody who is very acclaimed. People leave offerings during the Day of the Dead festival at this mausoleum and everything like that. They have for many decades. And he sneaks in because the guitar that, this man used is actually inside where his casket is. And by strumming this guitar, when he goes to make off with it, while still contained within the mausoleum, and there are flower petals everywhere, there's this mystical, magical happenstance that transports him to the realm of the dead. So havoc ensues, because at first he's not aware of it. He kind of takes on this ghostly form, and security guards realize, oh, the guitar's gone, somebody stole it, but he ended up dropping it on the floor, and now he's a spirit. He can't be seen by the living anymore because he's been transformed, transported over into the land of the dead, or at least that sort of divide where spirits roam in the land of the living. And he can see spirits. He's running into all these different people and skeletons and everything. He doesn't even realize a few of them are actually his family at first. And so it turns out his great-great-grandmother is stuck in the afterlife, and having been sort of taken under the wings of his dead family members all through the history of his family, they all decide to go back into the land of the dead, bringing him along, a live boy turned ghost, which isn't taboo at all, of course. No, it's just everybody's jaws are dropping and looking at him completely mystified and scared out of their gourds and everything. Very put off by a living boy being in the land of the dead. But in any case, it turns out the reason why his great-great-grandmother could not get across the flower petal bridge into the land of the living is because the shrines that they put up to remember the dead, they all include portraits and offerings of food and flowers and all this kind of stuff, gifts for the dead that would be returning. He had accidentally ruined, or rather smashed, the frame that her picture was a part of. It's subsequently that picture that has his great-great-grandmother, the torn head off great-great-grandfather, and his grandmother, who was only a little child at the time. And so his making off with the picture after having inadvertently smashed the frame that it was contained within, this is how he stumbles across that idea, that conclusion. He jumps to the conclusion, seeing the body of the great-great-grandfather not having a face in the picture because it's been torn off, but holding a guitar. This is how he makes the assumption that, oh, it's got to be this De La Cruz, this famous world-renowned singer. That's why I am so passionate for music. And so he wants to go to the afterlife and meet his great-great-grandmother, and he's hoping to gain their blessings and support for his love of music. But she's the one who was spurned. She's the one who felt abandoned. She's the one who put down that order that is passed down the generations. No, never, forevermore, music is to be allowed in this family. So she's going to wish him back. It takes a family member to bless him back to the land of the living, and she's willing to do that. No holds barred. She doesn't want him to be caught in the land of the dead and end up dying as a result, becoming a full-on spirit as a result. But she forbids him from pursuing music. So he doesn't want anything to do with that. He takes off running and gets, for all intents and purposes, lost in the land of the dead. And he ends up meeting this bumbling sort of con man, impressionist guy and everything, who's this kooky sort of liar, and he's trying to sneak out of the land of the dead, and he can't get across the flower bridge because no one has put up a portrait of him and all this kind of stuff. And they become kind of sort of fast friends. And he says, I can get you to this world-renowned singer, De La Cruz. I can take you to him. I knew him, and all this kind of stuff. And so this burgeons this wish and this hope and this dream for Miguel, who already has made the assumption that De La Cruz is his great-great-grandfather. This is the perfect answer to all of his qualms and his needs. A fellow musician who just happens to be my kin. It can do no wrong to get his blessing and be able to return to the land of the living with the blessing to pursue music. The thing is, without wanting to get too much into spoilers, a lot of unexpected twists and turns then are afoot. And there were a couple of things that I kind of predicted and saw coming, but there were a couple of twists and turns that I hadn't seen coming at all. And I had wondered up until the point where those twists and turns actually happened, like, what's going to happen? What's going to throw a wrench in the works? Because things are producing really smoothly in the course of this movie, and then suddenly, boom, I'm thunderstruck by one revelation, and then suddenly, boom, I'm thunderstruck by another revelation. I'm smacked upside the head. I'm thrown topsy-turvy. And I am at the edge of my seat, just eating up every single dripping minute. And it gets really heartening and bittersweet as somebody who has lost a majority of my family. They have all moved on, you know, left, right, and center. My parents, several grandparents, all the pets in my life, and everything like that. It's just my sister and I anymore in life. So there was already a bittersweetness to the idea of being able to reunite with the people who you've lost. And then what's more, the revelations that you know come to fruition for Miguel as he is exploring the land of the dead with his new friend, with his dog, which is actually sort of a street dog as he's called, but has followed him into the land of the dead and may or may not actually be a spirit guide in disguise. I just thought it was so phenomenal and so beautiful and so heartfelt and heartwarming and bittersweet, because it all revolves around his grandmother, who was the little girl, you know, for all intents and purposes, abandoned by this singer so many years ago. She's still alive, clinging to life, you know, very, very old lady, wheelchair bound, and she's unfortunately, you know, because of the extreme old age, either, you know, begun to become senile or fall into Alzheimer's, and she's forgetting a lot of her life, and a few times before he ends up stumbling over into the afterlife, she can be heard to call out, "Is Papa home? Is you know, Papa coming home?" And it's bittersweet how this relates, because of course Papa to her is his great great grandfather, whomever that might be. He does, I will say, he does eventually find out who his great great grandfather actually is. It may not be the person he had actually suspected. If you hadn't already gleaned that, by the way, I've been describing De La Cruz. You know, he came to the assumption, the conclusion that that's who his great great grandfather was. That is to say, that's not who it is. But there are certain revelations to do with this man and to do with his actual great great grandfather, who is at risk of being forgotten. And in the afterlife, if you are forgotten, if nobody puts up your portrait, if nobody is alive, left alive, to remember you, you are forgotten. And so you face a final death, as they refer to it in the afterlife, where you fade away, you fade to nothingness. And that's something that, again, sort of tugged at the emotional heartstrings for me, being that it's just my sister and I. Other than the friends and acquaintances I've made, like on these here interwebs and things like that, if I was, you know, dead tomorrow, not a whole hell of a lot of people remember Johnny Blues. So that made me misty-eyed and very emotional as well, the conflict there. And but it is very heartening and heartwarming by the end, the way it ends. And I was thoroughly crying at that point. It is such an emotional roller coaster with laughs, beautiful music, a beautiful, grand, you know, sort of mindscape of the afterlife that is very much embodied and surrounded by the motif of the Day of the Dead, which, you know, I'm somebody, I don't have any Mexican heritage or anything like that, mostly Italian, but so I wasn't familiar wholeheartedly with what the Day of the Dead was about. I knew it was about commemorating those lost and everything like that. But I feel like, as somebody who's a complete novice and complete, you know, has complete ignorance over how that festival is celebrated and why and all that kind of stuff, and how much family means to those who celebrate it, this movie was eye-opening and awe-inspiring for that. Those aspects that, you know, were heavily involved in the story, and being on this journey with Miguel and seeing to his finding a place for actually accepting music and finding a way to open his family's eyes, both in the hereafter and in the living world, to this passion he had, and maybe even by the end awakening that passion again within them, was just a beautiful, beautiful journey to take. And I couldn't more highly recommend, if you haven't already seen the Disney Pixar animated feature film Coco, drop everything you're doing and make time for it. You will not be disappointed. It was just an amazing, beautiful, beautiful piece. And so yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say on it. I really can't wait to own it one day and put it right there next to my you know, DVD copy of The Incredibles and all my other Disney films that I love so much. It will have a warm welcome on my shelf. You know, that is second to none as far as I'm concerned. And yeah, otherwise, I hope this video finds you well. Love to hear from you if you've already seen the movie, you know, what you thought of it, if you agree with me that it was so heartwarming and a groundswell of emotions and just a rollicking adventure in the afterlife of all things. And love it or hate it. Anything goes in the comments below. If you didn't happen to enjoy it, if you already seen it, you know, let me know that as well. Let me know what your qualms and issues were with it. It's all about having a great conversation, the topic of talk, and this is a movie worth talking about, and then some. So yeah, otherwise, I will catch you all later. Peace.